Hello everyone, and I'm back, Riawan. This is the chapter 3 of Introduction to DevOps. It's been more than a month. I apologize about this. But yeah, we are going to continue our learning as well to ensure that not just learning DevOps, but also try to understand the what should I say, the hidden factors behind it. Okay, this is me, Aryawan Kusumawadono. I'm bringing you the introduction to DevOps. We have learned if there is no DevOps, why should we use, why should we have, and then the introduction of the DevOps, the definition, and we know that there is people and the process and technology. No, and we are not going to discuss the technology yet. We have to discuss the people behind the DevOps first. Development department and operational. So in this chapter 3, we are defining the clear responsibility for the people. I have mentioned about the people in chapter 2. Why people is important? Because there will be no DevOps if there's no people, right? So we are going to continue on this chapter 3. Chapter 3, we are going to discuss more detail about defining clear responsibility for people in the dev department and also in the ops department. I'm not going to discuss specific about technology choose. I'm focusing on the concept first because there are many misconceptions and I'm going to discuss misconceptions, why most people thinking now we should have a dedicated DevOps manager. I don't want to agree because as I have mentioned before in the previous chapter, if you have DevOps established well enough and the people of the dev department and the ops department understand well enough, they have a very, very strong foundation of collaboration, there should be no DevOps manager needed. There is a case of DevOps manager needed, but it is not a must. When the people searching for DevOps manager, it is not really, really what they really want. Okay, we are now going to define and discuss the clear of responsibility for people of dev and ops. So now we are focusing on chapter 3. What are those people doing? Okay, dev is doing the development, ops is doing the operational, like monitoring, observability, maintaining the security, many things. But something about that kind of description doesn't really have to be on. This should be only the dev, this will be only optional. Security must be well defined, must be well maintained on both sides. We all know, okay, there's a security on the operating system, network, and so on and so on. It's usually putting the blame on the operational department. There is, there are some kind of truth on that, but not the whole truth, I'm afraid. People are available, then do what? There are some kind of condition develops before DevOps, right? This is some quick reminder from the previous chapter. App development was done in no version control, silent mental model. Even if there is a dev and ops department, they put it some kind of mental model as being on their own department. Like, don't ask me. You are the blame for this kind of blah 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 problem. Your deployed application makes the whole network goes down or something like that. Or your application or your running application is doing something nasty. CPU consumption goes high, IO consumption goes high, and then we have a noisy neighbor problem. That is not the problem actually. The way they say is already a problem because there was no collaboration, right? I can assure you there was no good collaboration. I prefer to have no collaboration at all. No collaboration means that they may not be aware each other. If there is a good collaboration, they should not say that the goal of having DevOps, meaning these two departments should always talk to each other. At least understand each other first, because before going to talk, who is the person I'm going to talk to? Like, you have to not just knowing, but trying to understand. You know that there is a book calls Seven Habits, it says seek first to understand, then to be understood. You have to understand the other party first, then the other party can understand you as well. Not just written paper, okay, we are going to have a regular meeting. That will not work. It's like someone is forcing you to do without any conscience and really awareness. Okay, I understand what I should do first, and I should be the one that be accountable for what I should do. So this is the key points, right? When they start to blame each other, they don't really understand their own department. When they say, I use .NET for example, .NET Framework version 4.5. Yeah, it is not supported anymore, but they keep using that. They say, it always work on my place, on my machine. They don't care about what should be the Windows version that they use. When it tries to deploy, they deploy on server instead of, usually development version is Windows client, like we have Windows 10, Windows 11. It is unjustified for any kinds of software engineer if you always use a server as the development machine, like you install Windows Server on your dev machine. There are rare cases like if you really want to check what's going on if I install it on server, that would be different, because now on these years, especially for the last 5 years, those app runtime, they have their own optimization, especially now that the Core is cross-platform. There is a very small differences. Either you are going to deploy that on the either Linux client or Windows client or Linux server or Windows server. The problem is not the OS directly, or it's not just the OS. There may be some configuration problem and so on. If you just say, okay, I'm just putting this and you just deploy, you're putting someone else as the blame, because ops doesn't have to exactly know all of the way that your application is going to be deployed. That requires a whole knowledge of runtime. That requires the ops to align, okay, if I have this runtime being installed on the server, is it okay? Like, is it secure or not? Does it have any kinds of security vulnerability like CVEs or something like that? Is the version right now is still okay for the next year, for example? What would be the life cycle? There is a problem. If you update every 2 months, there's a chance that the app will not work anymore. And then comes the other blame game from the ops. Okay, I'm just updating the app runtimes and your application is not working anymore. They say that after there is an incident. They don't say it before. They will assume that they have the right to maintain the app runtime. It is wrong, because maintaining the app runtime should not be the main job of the ops. It comes from the development environment requirement. Therefore, it should come from the development department. Why I told you this kind of sample scenarios? Because this shows even you already have dev and then the ops, it gets worse if you don't have a way to integrate them, a way to enable them to collaborate safely. I say safely because there are some boundaries, there are some rules that has to be respected. This problem of no clear decision or responsibility was caused by this siloed mental model, and it quite mid and long term. And I put emphasis on this one, especially this third point. Let's discuss it, the cycle before you are actually doing it, like doing the work, doing the task, and so on, for both, not just for dev and ops. Like, usually, you have to really understand your own responsibility first, your own department's responsibility first, and then understand the set goals. After we understand the set goals, understand the responsibility of dev and ops department, then we should, I think not should, we must understand the boundaries of set responsibility. Boundaries are important because mostly I see there are no clear boundaries. If there are no clear boundaries, we are going back to have that kind of previous scenario that I mentioned, like, introducing blaming games. The biggest goal is understanding and writing the commitment together to always support each other within set responsibility. Understanding the responsibility of their own department is easy because it's part of the initial uh, job description of that department. Like dev, yeah, you develop software. That is the simplified responsibility, right? For ops, you do the operational tasks or activities during the day-to-day office activities or the office operational. That kind of definition may be extended after office hours. It's always assumed that there's a possibility that something has to be ran for 24 hours. Now let's extend that a little bit further. You may have some kind of scenario that your customer is also outside your country, like outside Indonesia, meaning that there are some kind of hour differences between different time zones, for example. Especially if your customer is in US or Europe, you will have more than 5 hours differences. Then that kind of distinction, okay, I'm only doing the operational on the office hour, will be simply vanish. Even if you don't have international customers, you cannot perform a large operational operating system update during the office hour, right? You do that after office hours or even on weekend. There is one big possibility that your network, your environment is usually can be safely assumed that it will all be on for 24 hours. Especially there are something or some system that is closely related to daily finance activities like payment, account payable, account receivable, that kind of thing. You cannot ignore. Like, oh, I don't have to think about outside of hours. No, usually the department that are having the most awareness about that is usually operational, but dev should have that kind of mental model as well. For example, if you deploy app as a web means that many people can look at your website. It doesn't matter whether it's in the morning, afternoon, or at night, late night, whatever, different time zones. It doesn't matter because it assumes that once you deploy your app as a web application, don't assume that it always work on office hours because internet is international. Internet is not just okay. I'm in Indonesia and yeah, well, I could ignore other things. You could ignore other things, other countries about the language that your web app is presenting, but you could not ignore it. Anyone, anywhere, anytime can see and open your website, open your web app, run your web app, no matter where they are, what time. So never assume that, okay, I don't have to pay attention about that. That should be, what should I say, foolishness or full ignorance of that kind of a mental model. This is why I hope you can starting to see that this collaboration is highly important. Especially if you are trying to discuss how do I manage, how do I understand about the shared responsibilities, boundaries especially. On the next slide, I will discuss about the boundary first. But before that, do you really understand your own task, your own department, your own role? Okay, let's try to discuss these cycle. Start with dev and ops roles. In dev, you have a Scrum Master, but this kind of role is only specific for if you want to have a agile or to use agile or Scrum. Then you have backend engineer, you have front end engineer. I'm not discussing in this list for you have a full stack. The term full stack is to me is slightly misleading. You can have experience on doing JavaScript, HTML. Either you are doing Java or C# on the backend side. I do have some friends that can do many things on those different boards. But front end means that you also have to understand the way HTML is presented. You have to understand CSS because otherwise your website doesn't have any styles being applied, doesn't have any kinds of elements of styles being applied. Then of course you have to understand how DOM works. Even if you already, let's say, use jQuery, Angular, React, or whatever, you have to understand all of those. That's one thing that you understand, and you have to be aware that those kind of role is starting to be, it's important to have some role that really specific, because then you can understand, then you can reason about that kind of specific role. I can understand about my own role, like for example, backend engineer. I have experience of being a manager of backend engineers. Then you will know that even backend engineers, they have their own problems, like what kind of runtime are you going to use, what kind of a language. You can have a C#, F#, for example, if you use .NET. You can have VB, of course, but there are some kind of limitation if you use VB. For example, you cannot use VB if you want to develop web app on .NET Core. And then there are quality engineers, or quality assurance engineers, or test engineers. I think they are the same. Like, consider that tester or test engineers. They are the one that are going to perform the test during development, SIT, and UAT. Usually, people assume that UAT tester doesn't have to perform. The tester still have to perform because they need to verify if the user has tested like that based on the user's report, for example. Is it correct? Is it reproducible or not? Something that they have to verify. This is why on these phases like development, SIT, UAT, tester should be there and doing the testing. Why the tester has to do during development? They have to. Especially if you use agile. If you have done finishing one or two modules, you can hand over to tester. Okay, please test this immediately before we are going to do SIT, because maybe the development needs to verify, need to have some kind of a assure or certainty. Okay, is this feature is implemented correctly? I know that it may not be possible if you use waterfall, for example, but that is a different kind of story, different thing. And for that kind of methodology, you don't need Scrum Master. Then there's also software architect. This person will oversee overall architecture of the application and application environment, and maintaining implementation of enterprise software architect. Enterprise software architect means not just overseeing, okay, you are deploying on Windows Server and using runtime, blah blah blah. No, the architecture of the application, you have to pay attention to that. Also, the way the app is deployed. Are you using containers or not, for example? Or are you using cloud on-premise or not? So this is important because people always assume that cloud is cheaper because you don't have to maintain your own machine or your own metal or something like that, or you can also be reason about, okay, if you have a container deployed on your on-premise environment, I can also deploy that on cloud using container, for example. There's a different thing. You have to pay attention about the fact that if you deploy containers on cloud, you have to pay attention of the maintainability of the whole required infrastructure behind it. because you don't own the infrastructure directly, right? I mean, the bare metal of the network, the actual cabling, and so on, so on, so on. And then also, some cloud provider force you to agree on the availability of certain container image to be used. Then you have to pay attention, because the one that usually pay attention to that kind of situation or scenario is usually the ops, not the dev. I have to admit, especially in Indonesia, most of those developers that posting, oh, I understand container, I understand Kubernetes, and so on, so on, so on. I could just use cloud for that, easier for me. They don't really understand the consequences once the cloud provider has stopped giving the image that is being used for the part of the container deployment. Their deployment will not work anymore. Or even if they work in the future, something may be broken because they decided, okay, I'm not going to support this. Maybe I'm just to deprecate it. So that kind of responsibility should be known by dev, not just by ops. I'm not saying that, okay, you should just deploy on the on-premise. No, cloud will always have their own, advantage. Like you don't have to pay the whole maintenance for all. You just deploy your app, for example, or you just deploy the operating system and the app. You know that there is a SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, something like that. Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. Okay, now we have understand dev. We need to also understand the roles of ops. You have infrastructure network engineer. You have cloud engineer. You can see in the description, cloud engineer will only focus on cloud. I think this cloud engineer is slightly misleading because we have a hybrid environment, right? One part of the environment is sitting on the on-premise, the other part is sitting on cloud. You need to have a specific person or engineer that understand those two different worlds. I say that a good cloud engineer can be a good hybrid environment engineer because actually understanding cloud is actually more difficult than understanding engineer as you are seeing on premise, because you are losing many things to control. You don't have a visibility on the how is the firewall is deployed, how is the router, and so on and so on. So you have to understand the fact that the next thing is operation security engineer or network security engineer. So this network security engineer is usually a good hybrid engineer because network security should also span not just on premise but also on cloud. Many kinds of scenarios are basically the same. You have to understand how the network is flowing, how the flows of data is flowing. Is it encrypted or not? Is it secure or not? Are you using a modern security protocol like TLS version 1.2 or later, you know, SSL version 3, for example, with the correct certificate, root certificate? How are you going to maintain the maintenance of, keeping those certificates to be always valid, not expired, for example? That is part of the security engineer as well. And then there is some kind of specific, sometimes it is there, sometimes it's not there, the change configuration manager. Why I put this kind of change configuration manager discipline into the ops rules? Because they are the department, or I should say sub-department, that always monitor any kinds of changes, including operating system update, firewall changes, routing changes, application update, application runtime update, and so on, or patching. Any kinds of known changes, even just software update, or patches or many things. They are the one that maintain those, not just take notes, but also try to justify the whole updates as a maintenance point, because there's a chance that you have to have a good plan of when you are going to deploy what kind of changes. Is it possible to roll back, because many changes are hard to roll back. So this is why I put this on the ops, not on the dev. But the dev, of course, they have to know why the change configuration management is there, why this kind of a discipline exists. Don't ignore any kinds of roles, especially roles outside your own department. Now we are going to discuss about boundaries, Tale of Two Cities. If you follow my LinkedIn profile, I always mention about Tale of Two Cities, cities of dev and ops, because I have lots of years of experience on doing DevOps, giving training on DevOps. I'm talking about the pragmatism side, especially related to these learning videos. You need to understand the dev and ops before you understand DevOps, right? Since those two are separate by default, there are some boundaries. This is why I put small notes here how the dev and ops are aware of boundaries. So we mentioned about city. I consider the city as a department on its own. We have a closed city with the high, walls and almost isolated from outside. We have open city that have a gate, of course, but they have provided a way to let someone from outside to come, or someone from inside to go out. Of course, when you are talking about collaboration, one or more parties are going outside their department, start to talk, start to communicate, start to discuss, start to understand each other. This is why DevOps should be open. This is also a good illustration. Okay, like I mentioned before, usually if you have a siloed mental model or silo department, it is also the same as having this kind of a left city, like closed city. You are basically isolating your own department from outside. Having this kind of collaboration, it's hard to prove, but it's also quite easy to see. Seeing directly can be seen as proof, of course, but see in the sense that if you have a good DevOps established in place, there should be a regular meeting, regular collaboration, and one thing to be sure, based on my previous discussion, there should be no blaming game. I put a note here. So we have seen that closed doesn't have any exit or entry paths. If you have open, not just open from the outside, but open from inside as well, so people can come and go. Knowing rules and boundaries. We have understand the rules, but how about boundaries? We know how to have clear rules and responsibility, but how to communicate between these two cities, and after having clear roles and responsibilities, how to ensure that these roles and specific for city meeting and filling in the gaps, how to have a defined collaboration with clear definition of communication and who is responsible and who should be accountable, especially the second word of responsible and accountable. Now, before I move to next slide, let me ask you, are you sure that if you say that you really understand DevOps, you don't have to pay attention of this kind of a definition of responsible and accountable? I doubt it. And this kind of responsible, accountability, and so on, so on, so on, is very, very rarely mentioned. How are you going to manage that? Because this is very, very rarely mentioned in the any kinds of books or references about DevOps. So I have some way And of course, I invite discussion if you agree or not with me. Let's take and see other kinds of discipline. Like I'm going to borrow some kind of knowledge or some kind of concept from the world of project management, especially software development project management, and it is called Racematrix. The common definition is this. A Racematrix is a responsibility assignment tool used in project management. So I already mentioned I'm taking this from project management methodology to clarify who does what on every task, decision, and deliverable within the project. The acronym stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. These four roles that, when mapped clearly, eliminate ambiguity and keeps the projects moving. I have the link here I mentioned, so you can go and see the link yourself. It's coming from Institute of Project Management. R is responsibility. You have the responsibility to do the actual work or task. Accountable. You own the task. Of course, you have to responsible. You have to be responsible first, and then you have the accountability. But this is totally separated in terms of the meaning, not the actual work. Accountable means that you don't have to do the full work or task. You are the person that decides. You are the person that gives us, honest review of is the outcome ready or not, finished or not, is it good or bad. You are going to answer all of that kind of inquiries. You own it, not just you work on it, but you own it. So that's the key point. And then consulted. You have to be consulted. So if you are dev enough, let's say you do development on the dev, you deploy using some kind of packages, and you give it or hand it over to ops team. But the ops team may ask you, and you should give the best answer for them. What kind of any kinds of configuration or settings and so on before we are going to deploy your app, for example. That means that you as the dev, you are the one to be consulted. And usually, the one to be consulted is also the one to be informed, at least telling you, not just verbally, but telling you with the proper channel, going through verbally telling you in a meeting, and it has to be written. You can, okay, say use emails or document that comes from minute of meetings or documents that comes from the agreed, consensus or something like, okay, we have to collaborate on this one, and we have to be able to finish this document today, for example. That kind of thing of collaborative. So you have responsibility, accountable, consulted, and informed. Let's try to see these RACI in action. But before that, there are some kind of foundational rules. First, accountability is always be one party. As the owner of the task, being accountable means that it goes beyond the person or party that's responsible, because the main decision, the person or party must answer the outcome, must answer any question, the outcome, any kinds of question about the, is it finished or not, that has to be owned by one person or party. If the accountable is owned by zero party, then there will be no decision, there will be no definitive outcome, because there is no owner for that kind of work or task. Therefore, there will be no outcome. How are you going to reason about any kinds of outcomes that comes from any kinds of work that has no owner? So this is very important. This is why on the general RACI, you say accountability is only owned by one party. Okay, this is very important, and why it is only one. If there are more than one person or party accountable, then the involved party looks for each other, and there will always be a dispute. Okay, how are you going to really reason about what part of you or your department or other department is really accountable. Let's say if you have dev and ops, and again, those two are also the one that accountable. It may be on some kind of situation or condition, right? Usually, if you are not careful about this, most of the time, and I can say about 85 to 90%, always give rise to blaming game. Yeah, you are accountable, but this is your own doing, or something like that. No, no, no. This is part of the fact. We are accountable. We do this together. Then who is really going to own the outcome? Nobody. No department. This is general, right? There are something that needs to be noted. Okay, this is the list of the responsibilities for dev. One, provide high-level project plan, meeting with them, and ops and so on, so on. Usually, this is being initially proposed by project manager. That project manager is usually inside the dev department. This is why on the RESI, dev is the one that has the responsibility and also the accountability. On the offside, you have IC, means that informed and consulted. This informed and consulted is not optional, it is a must. And then design and development business requirement as needed usually comes from business analyst or system analyst, then breaking down into work items. Work items in the sense like if you use Agile, for example, you have epic, features, and tasks. Usually you have epic and features first, but that kind of things, especially features, is not directly executable in terms of how are you going to divide into an actual task that are going to be assigned to developers. But the importance and awareness of that kind of business requirements has to inform the ops team, because you will have some plan that defines that you are going to change something on the current environment, including dev and production service. They need to be informed. And you can see and read for yourself, design and develop technical requirements. Of course, yeah, ops still need informed and consulted. Prepare the work items at low level details. Dev is the RA, ops is just informed. Informed because although this is more like a functional specification, especially dealing with the business logics, the ops needs to be informed, part of the SDLC. They are involved from the beginning, right? And then perform manual tests and smoke tests, implement the apps, same. You can read it on your own. This one is slightly different. Perform bug fixes and retest again from SIT to UAT. The environment from dev, SIT, UAT are prepared by the ops team. Ops team will prepare it. But I'm not going to put ops team as the R, especially the A. They have to prepare it. These are within the responsibility for the ops on the next slide. The ops needs to be informed, because when you are doing some bug fix and retest, they have to know that okay, you take some time slots to do, and when you are doing that, that machine should not be updated, should not be changed, should not have any kinds of regular operating system update, for example, because that will or may destroy a existing running app. Yeah, this is why they have to be informed. You may say they have to be also consulted as well, but the actual schedule usually comes from dev department first, because they know how they align with the project plan and timelines. Perform per test and load test. Yeah, I should fill in this first. Load test and per test. Yeah, of course, the one that doing this is the dev RA. Yeah, responsible and accountable. The ops needs to be informed and also consulted. You may say, okay, the ops may also do the load test, but that will, I say, will destroy the accountability as well. And who is going to be to take full responsibility or to own it. Implement telemetry, yeah, part of the dev, and ops need to be informed. And also, we also doing the responsibility as well, because it means that they have to also define how are we going to, let's say, measure the CPU consumption, I/O, and so on, memory, whatever. This is why they are RI. The next one is the ops. Right? Next one is the ops. Review the design and jointly develop technical requirements. Review and jointly develop. Yeah, still dev the RA, ops the IC. But they have to be there. They have to be. They have to present. Setup and configure. Developer machine. Yeah, ops is the RA. Dev is the IC. Secure. Oh, sorry. Setup and configure. Same. Maintain existing operation development is the same. Dev IC on dev is on not the RA. Dev the IC. Ops the RA. Maintain a strict and regular monitoring of the OS lifecycle and so on, so on. The same, except maintain data center with disaster recovery scenarios and always revisit the disaster recovery scenario. Dev is the I or being informed. Ops is the one that is responsible and be accountable. What exactly the boundaries or meaning for DevOps? These kind of boundaries are not the same boundaries that usually mean as borderized, visible walls and so on. Like a visual border to visualize what kind of boundaries, like to separate or to isolate. No, this should be only happen on my place, or I only own this place. I'm the one that not just own, maybe responsible as well. There are also organizational and department boundaries, which is why not exactly the physical boundaries, because those department of dev and ops are having boundaries as clear responsibility of each department, and also later clear responsibility when you are collaborating. Of course, the emphasis is organizational and department boundaries, while at the same time respect each other's sole responsibility, but the transparency of the boundary of responsibility are open for regular collaboration and communication. Now it's more than 50 minutes, hopefully not much than 1.5 hour. Now we are going to talk about social responsibilities. So the note here, the collaborative start of cities of dev and ops start with responsibilities of each unique capabilities of each department. We have shared responsibilities. Shared responsibility has meaning exactly as is, as both departments have the same responsibility. These shared responsibilities also mean that dev department and ops department must do the task and work together, and they are both accountable. This is why it is totally different from the foundational RASI, right? I mentioned about accountable. Accountable in the sense that there should be no blaming game, but there is a still distinction of who is doing what and the collaboration. For example, while this condition and situation may clearly break the RASI metric, of course, it may lead to blaming game, yeah. The shared responsibility are exceptional for this rule because the shared goal, if you are having a shared responsibility, of course, those parties involved are doing the same task, and those two are having the same accountability. For example, if you are, I don't know about this in other countries, we have some kind of activities with the, surrounding neighbors, like you are cleaning the street, cleaning the sewer and so on. We call it Kerja Bakti. You and your neighbors gathering together have the same goals of to ensure that the streets are clean by doing it together. Understanding that we have the same goals, of course. Who is the person that accountable? All of you, right? So this is why for this kind of thing, set responsibilities, accountability can be more than one. person or parties. What is the fine line that can be concluded together with DevOps? For example, you can start to give each other the life cycle, the current state of the supported like OS, application runtime. Application runtime usually should come from dev. OS usually comes from ops. You can start to give each other information. You can start to discuss. You can start to how are we going to inventorize, or how are we going to have a good documentation or good written notes about these. So this communication of shared responsibility has to be done well. And now we move to how how is how to ensure it is well done. Of course, you have to respect each other, especially respecting the accountability. You have to have a regular periodic coordination and collaboration meeting, not just coordination meeting, but also collaboration. This meeting has to be done regularly, which is why I put emphasis on regardless when there is a new app or not. Next one, the third one, any uses of OSS software on both dev and ops must be shared and always be discussed together, because this relates on the use of the license of the open source software. For example, how are we going to treat, or how are we going to have awareness of we are using copyright, we are using copyleft and permissive licenses, including the implication of the license and also consequences. That will also bring mostly unseen consequences like legal consequences, or maybe license breach consequences, something like that. But then all those tools always end up as a legal consequences. This is why there should be no exception to always obey the license and being aware of the consequences. Usually, the easiest or simplest thing is try to avoid any kinds of software that has copyleft license. Try to avoid that, and always use permissive license such as MIT, such as Apache, and you have a Eclipse PL. The Eclipse Foundation, they have their own permissive license, the Eclipse PL, which is why Eclipse permissive license actually. Next, in the meeting, the willingness to collaborate and share information, especially about new softwares and support, as I mentioned before. This also any kinds of security vulnerability, technical findings, security breach, and changing direction of OS and uptime time. For example, let's say there's a news, okay, Windows 11 or Windows 10 is going to have end of support. That kind of information has to be communicated. It should be shared. It's always be communicated. So shared responsibility is not just having the shared task, but also shared obligation or shared responsibility to share any kinds of information related to any kinds of elements that is being part of that dev and ops itself. So not just the OS, but also the app runtime. The one that knows best app runtime is usually the developer. The one that knows the lifecycle, the operating system, is usually the ops team. And now we are going to nearing the end of this video. As I mentioned before, don't forget to like and subscribe. Of course, my channel. Feel free to ask me or give comment as well. I welcome. Usually, there's some minimum comment, but I always appreciate any kind of comment, especially feedback and questions. I expect from you, because that gives the meaning of this channel, meaning that someone is not just paying attention, but actually interact with this content by having feedback and question, whatever. I welcome. Okay, I'll see you in next chapter. I hopefully can advance to the process. Looks like this chapter 3 has some kind of a continuation. Yeah, let's see it. on the next contact and next videos. I'll see you next, and bye bye.